to build your dream team. Building futures, that's our theme. Key Tech Talks will show the way. With Key Global, spread your wings.
Welcome, bienvenue, welcome once again to another Key Tech Talks starring Lauren Halket, founder of Key Global Recruitment. I'm the man with the many purple hats, and today in the fabulous studio we've got Alex Cat. Now, is this Cachia or Cachia?
It's phonetically spelled there.
I just thought that was decoration. Cachia. There we go. I'll get it right twice going. I'll probably cut that in post, or will I? So today's conversation, as usual, is all about neurodiversity in tech. And we've got some questions to go for. But first of all, I'm going to toss the cable straight over to Lauren. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you very much. And thank you, Alex, for joining us. It's, an absolute pleasure and a delight to have you. So thank you very, very much. And today, our conversations, as always, are going to be around neurodiversity within tech. So I've got a couple of questions for you, Alex. And I think the first one that I'd like to ask you is, what kind of team setup really helps you do your best as someone neurodivergent?
So when you say team setup,
yes,
as in like stack, are we talking just environment, like physical environment, how I work with people? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. I think more along, your team setup, how you kind of work with people.
Yeah. So I actually work for myself. So that fits that. Yeah. So one of the reasons I do work for myself was because I struggled so much working in an office.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I worked in the industry for 4 years, and then my sister set up her own business, and that's when I went, oh, that would fix a lot of the problems. So I, kind of the way I fixed it was eradicating it, basically. So I collaborate a lot with people, but I do work by myself here, and I don't use co-working space or anything like that. I have to work on my own.
Yeah, and that is because of your neurodivergency.
Yes and no. So I also have something called misophonia, which is supposedly linked to autism. They're not really sure what it is, but essentially I find noise is very distracting, which is obviously a symptom of autism as well. And so, the only way I can focus is to be just in a room on my own with music blasting. And you're not really allowed to do that in an office.
No, it kind of doesn't work, Alex. Does it really?
Not a fan.
Yeah, no, I have, experienced that myself. I am just awaiting my autism assessment now. So just round the corner.
Yeah.
But I've been, diagnosed with it. I don't know how many times, kind of by the doctors. And something that, I find a struggle is what you just said. It's sound, it's very, very distracting. And I do feel like working from home, working for myself, you can control that, a lot better. And I can totally, totally come on board with you with that. As within my neurodivergency, it's something that I, struggle with on a regular basis. And being, working from home and being self-employed definitely, helped me to keep that focus because, I can control, kind of that sound really.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking, just because this is one of the problems that I often had people say to me as well, just wear headphones. And I sort of explained, no, I do. Yeah. I do wear headphones. The problem is it's incredibly painful to wear headphones for 8 hours a day, very loud to block out the noises. Did you kind of have a similar problem, or were you in an environment where you just couldn't wear headphones?
Yeah, no, I was somewhat similar. And that's what, spurred me on to, keep pushing for my, autism assessment because, I tried various things and none of it worked. I found that working from home really, really helped me to, to keep that focus. I think, going on to, obviously, I'm a founder, I run my own business. So, it's about, I think it's not about failing yourself or thinking that you're a failure. I think it's how you deal, with that feedback and what you put in as a recovery plan and what you, then invest in yourself, really, for me. Because, when I go to, sites, when I visit, customers, clients, stuff like that, that isn't, that isn't as difficult. But, sitting in an office for 8 hours, I'm totally with you, Alex. I've tried the headphones. That didn't work for me. But I think it's how you deal with it. It's like anything, isn't it? It's how you bounce back. And I think it's that open communication all the time, being real, those one-to-ones. If you were in a busy, if you were in an office environment, I think it's about coming forward, being confident in asking what you need, as adjustments and things like that, in order you to thrive, within your role.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of almost two-part, though. I think as well, it's also about employers being aware of that as well, and knowing and making that a conversation. Because so my first job, I was very lucky that we had, I'm trying to remember the HR person who I had meetings with once a month.
Yeah.
And I think she brought it up. Oh, maybe she didn't. I think it might have been I brought it up and said, look, I've been told I can't wear headphones. And I've said, look, I disclose this in my thing. I have autism. This is not me trying to threaten anyone, but I will leave. I cannot be in this job if I cannot wear headphones.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had that person, and if I hadn't felt confident enough to say that to her, I don't really know what would have happened. So I feel like it's kind of important for employers to understand these barriers for people with autism and to make them feel comfortable to be able to ask those questions and say, well, what do you need?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's particularly for women as well, to say, actually, these are things I require in order to not be miserable working here.
Yeah. And I think also
it's sort of a two-part. Well, sort of two conjunction.
It's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
It's it's a partnership. Exactly, it is exactly that. And I think employers that make it very, very visible that they're invested in this, and they are working very, very hard to build inclusive environments, and are very focused on D&I as a topic, have teams. I say this in most of my talks, but I truly believe in it, in that employers that make this known, that they invest in this by one-to-ones, when people come in the organization, when you first start interviewing people, what would you need in your role to be successful? Under your neurodivergency, being human, asking what would you need, what are the adjustments that you would need, what would you need to be successful within your role. And I think, should you have employers like that, where it's really, really, they make it very, very obvious that they're fully invested in this, then I think neurodiverse talent can, come forward and ask that. But I think it is a two-way thing, Alex, and it's good that you mentioned that. And I think, there's so much neurodiverse talent within our sector that, they probably aren't as confident. And if the employer isn't trying to bring it out of them by way of website presence, internal presence, dedicated team, a dedicated team for this, bringing external people in, talks about it. There's so many various things, then neurodiverse talent are going to be sat there struggling.
Yeah, it does really confuse me, if I'm honest, because most of it, there are a lot of autistic and other neurodivergent people within the tech industry.
Yeah.
And yet the amount of employees that don't seem to understand it really confuses me. I actually, I didn't go for this job did I? No. So there was an interview I went for, I was trying to remember what happened, because I did end up working for, but I'd forgotten that it wasn't this job. So I applied with this company initially for a support role. So they weren't the dev role, which I think maybe they would have had more of an understanding. It was a support role. It was a bit more like first line support, that sort of thing. Got to the final stage of the interview. I wasn't sure about the job anyway because it wasn't what I wanted, but I made it clear, by the way, I'm autistic. The interviewer, who would have been my boss, genuinely said to me, look, whatever you get up to in your spare time is none of our concern. And I just remember sat there thinking, what do you think I've just said? What do you think autism means? And how on earth, how do you not know what? I cannot be the first person to come to you and tell you that. And it just blew my mind. And that was a big reason why I went. I think potentially that conversation could have shifted. If that person had been really understanding, maybe I would have gone for the role. Who knows? And I feel I was lucky that wasn't a job I wanted. That wasn't the career I wanted to go into. But if that was something that someone was really passionate about, that could have been very detrimental as your first interview and having that happen to you. But so so I just thought I'd mention that because I always bring that up because I've got friends that also have worked for that company since, and they've said, wow, really? Yeah, that genuinely happened to me.
Yeah, wow, what an experience. So funny. What an experience. And like I say, that could be detrimental.
I joke about it, and it was a funny thing for me to happen, but I was very sure of myself and knew that this is what I needed. And like I said, it wasn't the role I wanted to go into, whereas I feel like if my first ever dev company that I was desperate to work with them had said that to me, I think I would have gone, oh, okay, right, I'm not allowed to say what I need. I'm not allowed, I'm putting it on. This is, because I do get that a lot. It's always, oh, you don't look autistic. I get that a lot, and I have to be like, and I actually, one person said, don't put yourself down, which I thought, okay, that says a lot about how you interpret autism.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Not appreciative of the neurodiverse mind whatsoever. I think it is, you can get, I just can't believe these people, to be honest. And I think, you can get misunderstood. It's frustrating for the neurodiverse people because, the way that you interpretate things, the way that you think things, are so different to the rest almost. And like you need those D&I champions, you need those neurodiverse champions within organizations to appreciate the neurodiverse talent, because there's so many advantages, there's so many positive things, there's so many unique things about neurodiverse talent that could really ramp your organization up with such a creative mindset, fast problem solving, really good spotters, and if you were actually really ambitious, and invested in this area and appreciated it, you could be thriving with, neurodiverse talent. But it's appreciating it by, showing, being human around it, have those conversations. What do people need? What adjustments do people need? How can we, if we present things to you, Alex, in this way, is that going to be okay?
Yeah.
It's little things like, when you bring people into your organization and you've got your board meeting, how would you, do you want a cup of tea? How many sugars? How would you like it? It's similar at the end of the day. It really is.
But it's also about consistency as well. I think that's the other thing. It's not just we've done this once, it's making sure that you keep that in place, and there is not a structure, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Oh, there's a word for it, like a set of procedures.
That was I was pissing myself.
I know.
Gareth, I'm just going to have to cut
because Alex, we're only part-time autistics. It's something we put on for a show. It was when they said what you get up to in spare time. I was like, do you think autism is a kink? Like what? It's actually because me and my friends, we go out and we just do the tistic.
We autists, we do the autists at the weekends. Like I say, it kind of for me then highlighted, well, I feel like in a dev team that wouldn't have, maybe it would have done, but it just made me think, okay, have you not worked with enough autistic people?
Come on, Alex, that would never have happened in a dev team because 95% of the dev team are on the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd all be with their headphones on.
Yeah. Well, you say that when like I said, that first job that I was in.
I've got a solution for you, headphones. These
Hi, Meg.
Cost Porta Pros. They don't hurt your ears. You can wear them 8, 9. They're not full enclosure, so you will hear a bit the outside. So you need to keep
Have you got
or else it will irritate
I
you.
can drop you off
But
'cause
these, you can wear them for hours, and they expand. And I've had them for many years, but they're still available. They're not that expensive. I think 35, 40 quid, that sort of thing. Good sound. Because they're not full enclosure, if you're looking, I don't know if you're a bass nerd. Is that your thing?
I can't have any outside noise. I have to have completely. Also, I've got very small head and small ears, so when I wear overhead, they end up resting here. They don't actually rest
you have a look at them. See if you can find some second hand. They're great. I don't know if you're a person who can't have second hand ones. I buy second hand. Well, some people get freaked out by that. So you can buy the pads very easily.
So let me call you back. I'm just recording.
I just put a new set of pads.
Love you. Bye, bye, bye.
Yeah, and
sorry, guys, kids. Sorry about that.
All right. Okay.
But they are wired, Alex. They are wired though, so they're not Bluetooth. I'm afraid, but yeah, I get around the problem because I also can't wear headphones for any length of time. These are the Cos Porta Pros, and they are very light on the ears, but they give incredible bass response.
Gareth, I've literally got 5 minutes. Basically, the kids, they normally go back to their mum's on a Wednesday, but she's working late, so I've got
let's get up. Ask the last question. I'll round it up. Okay, I'm disappearing.
Okay. Right, Alex, thank you so much for answering some of them. That's absolutely wicked and awesome. Really good thing about headphones, because it's a pain point for me. I feel your pain. I've been through it, and it's just about making adjustments, isn't it, really? And knowing yourself. That's what I think, neurodiverse is all about. So what would you say to someone who's neurodivergent and just starting out in tech? What would you say, Alex? Some good little tips here.
Yeah, I think it is about knowing yourself initially.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then figuring out from there what you need. So it sounds really silly, but I remember when I first went freelance, I used to have in-person meetings, and I noticed that every time I'd have one of these meetings, it was obviously an hour of full-blown eye contact and showing all my, what I could do, and I was still very new to it all. And I remember coming back and feeling exhausted. I'm thinking, this is really embarrassing.
Overloaded. Did you feel overloaded and overwhelmed?
But I took the step back and went, no, I'm going to go for a nap. No, this is not me being silly. I'm going to make up the time later, but my body is overwhelmed from this. And so that became a rule that I set for myself for a good 6 months of every time I have a meeting, I come back and I sleep because my body needs to reset from it. But I kind of reflected on it a few years later and thought, if I hadn't known that about myself and about autism, I would have pushed through and gone, no, I'm being too much. That's a ridiculous thing to need. When in actual fact, no, that was entirely what I needed as an autistic person. So I think it is about, knowing what you need and give yourself a break. Our brains do it differently. We need different things.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I can say is I started to, I had a coach. So I invested in an ADHD coach to think about coping mechanisms and a bit of therapy really around it initially. I don't do that now because I've kind of mastered some coping mechanisms. But one thing that we did implement straight away is, frequent, kind of 10-minute, 15-minute breaks, short little walk, to come back. And also maybe as well that you shorten your day, because we work so fast and we can get so much more done because the way that we think and the way that we look at things. I know one neurodivergent person that I, through my podcast, we've become really close, and she literally powerhouses it for 5 hours.
Yeah. And,
it's like she's done a 12-hour day. So either, take more breaks regularly or powerhouse yourself for, like a shorter day, but just blast through it.
Yeah.
And that's worked.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say as well that I've, obviously as autistic people, we're quite bad for, we set a rule, we follow it to the end of time. And I think it is worth, because something I did kind of learn is I don't do that anymore. I've built up resilience. I can now have conversations with people and not feel exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of checking in with yourself periodically as well and going, okay, is this something I still need? No, but do I need something else? I think that's quite important because it is very easy for us to get stuck in our ways. And I'm guessing Gareth, I'm guessing you've got the same thing as me.
Well, my problem is if I'm working with someone and they're constantly making changes, like look, your example, Alex, you've taken on a new client. They've said, I want this, I want it based around that, and I've got these kind of images on there, and then they keep changing their mind about colors, like every 5 minutes. Yeah. Actually, I want it blue. Actually, can you go lighter blue? Actually, I think green now. Now yellow. Can I have yellow with green? That. Yeah. And I about 10 minutes of that, and I just want to bail.
Yeah. No, I get that. I don't know whether you get it, Alex, but I certainly do. Just become so impulsive. And I think neurodiversity makes great entrepreneurs due to its, such creative, minds. Because once you get the setting, whether that's at home or you're in an office and you have a different area, once you get your spacing right so that you can focus, you become obsessive. Once you've got a good process, because process is what, does drive us. Yes, we might not be able to execute it because of so much detail, but, we do thrive in chaos because that, we come to that problem solving spot and I can see that. Let's, make a new venture, or let's build that, or let's build this. But I think once you get that right, I think, you can, really focus, and you can, the things that make us amazing from neurodivergency really start to come out then once you get the setting and the adjustments and, okay, how do I thrive and survive? What setting do I need in order to do that? Because you do become then, like me, I become obsessive, impulsive, really hyper-focused, really passionate in the areas that I want to come in, because I've been confident enough to say, I've now invested in myself. I've taken my mask off. I know what I want. I know what setting I need. I know what type of management style. I know what process. And I think that's half of the battle, personally.
Yeah.
I have to... So you were saying, Alex, I apologize.
No, I hadn't realised until you said that, like my big thing is I do a lot of bug fixing. And I'm very good at it. It's a big area that I work on. And I hadn't realised until you said that, that isn't something that I did when I was in a company. That wasn't something I knew I was good at or enjoyed. But because I'm in a setting that makes me comfortable, that I've honed in and made it perfect, that's allowed me to find the areas that I really do thrive in. So yeah, it's really, I had not noticed that before. Thank you.
That's the lack of impulse control. That's more an ADHD. So thank you once again, Lauren. That was an excellent interview. I hope you found that all interesting, all of you out there. Thank you, Alex. Cachia. Yes. I got it right this time. Hooray! And to all of you watching, try and remember, neurodivergence is neither bad or good. I've met some awful neurodivergents, and I've met some excellent normal people. So what can I tell you? All I would say is, if you know yourself well enough, you can make best use of those hidden skills, and that's part of the deal. What Alex was absolutely pointing to earlier. It's about knowing yourself first before you try and fit into anywhere else. All I would say is watch out. We've got more exciting episodes coming up. Until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and who knows, you might catch the moon. Until next week, take care of yourself and look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
We're here to build your dream team. Building futures, that's our theme. Key Tech Talks will show the way.